Back in the day, I can confidently say that this was the prime time of Nissan and Infiniti. Nissan offered the Altima SER, and Infiniti was really pushing their G nameplate. And unfortunately, a lot of these Gs have succumbed to takeover culture, being abused and driven by pine cones. However, I do have to say, clean examples like this one sometimes make me think of the glory days. Infiniti released the first ever G for the 1991 model year. Now, believe it or not, the G nameplate has been around since 1990. The first and second gen Infiniti G20s were based off foreign market Nissan Primera, which we don't get. The Primera-based Gs went on for 2 generations, but in 1998, Infiniti released the Maxima-based i30. It was placed right above the compact G20, and it was also intended to compete with likes of the Lexus ES300 and the Acura 3.2 TL. And now 2003. This is really where the G began to be the vehicle that we know as it is today. The first ever G35 was available in several different combinations, either sedan or coupe, and also all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive. The Gs first came out with the VQ35DE, which was shared with the Nissan Pathfinder, and they really put it in everything. Renault even put it in the Espace, the minivan. In 2006, Infiniti released the second generation of the G, just like this one, for the 2007 model year. Infiniti still carried over the old VQ35, but now it's the VQ35HR, which has revised intake systems and also new variable valve timing. Meanwhile, a year later, the G Coupe got the VQ37 VHR, which was used in the 370Z, a 3.7 liter power plant. For the 2009 model year, Infiniti gave the G Sedan the 3.7 liter, and they replaced the dated 5-speed automatic for a 7-speed automatic. Something also that was trickled down besides the name and the heritage of the Skyline is the all-wheel drive system in the G35 and 37X models. They use the Atessa all-wheel drive system that's been used in the GTR. This G in particular belongs to my friend Karna. It's a 2008 G35 S with the 6-speed manual. This one is also sitting at just around 178,000 miles, and the VQs in these can last a pretty long time. Back in 2008, you could choose between 3 different trim levels: Base, Journey, and S. Thankfully, this one is an S, so we can talk about the extra goodies that Infiniti added for the more sporty G driver. So the G35S, also known as the Sport Package, got stiffer rear springs, tighter bolsters for the driver and passenger side seats, viscous limited slip rear differential, and also larger brake calipers and rotors. The rotors are now 13 inches. To my surprise, for back in the day, Infiniti even offered an active steering package, which had an enhanced steering rack with a better gear ratio, even stiffer springs than the normal S model, which some people in forums have said that's even too stiff. And also, those with the active steering package could get rear-wheel steering. I can imagine those are really hard to find. So there were, oh my god, it is the same guy that is going to film me talking. I cannot believe this happened again. But there's many different wheel options. We're gonna keep going. There's many different wheel options that you could choose from Infiniti back in 2008. The Base and Journey models could get 17-inch alloy wheels. The S model, like this one, gets 18s, and they're slightly staggered. So although the G35 is only offered with the VQ35HR, you can choose many different combinations for your G: all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, automatic or manual, sedan or coupe. So like I said, this is the VQ35 HR. So this is supposed to be more efficient and also more responsive than the previous DE. This makes 308 horsepower and 268 pound-feet of torque. And in this S model, power only goes to the rear wheels through a 6-speed manual transmission and a viscous limited slip rear differential. For the most part, it was only base and journey trims that could option the Atessa all-wheel drive system, but to my recollection, Infiniti did make a G35 XS at one point. 0 to 60 for a manual G35 S, just like this one, is just about 5 seconds, with a quarter-mile time of just above 13 seconds. That's pretty quick. That's pretty quick. So as you'd expect from a luxury sports sedan, even back then, getting in your trunk is pretty easy. You can either push a button on the interior, hold a button on your key fob, or next to the backup camera, there's a nice little button over here. Trunk space is pretty decent at 13.5 cubic feet, which is actually a cubic foot bigger than the 2008 Acura TL at 12.5 cubic feet. The only thing I can complain about is the CD drive taking up a little bit of space, but that's not that bad. Something that makes up for it is the shocks that are out of the way from crushing things. Wow, it's windy. To my surprise, underneath the floor is a donut spare tire. You know, a lot of these sports sedans, even back in the day, didn't have spare tires. Everyone was doing run flats back then, which were even more expensive, would wear, and they were less grippy on the road. This is a much better way of doing it. Something I've always wondered about the G sedan is how big the rear seat is. Wow. I'm actually kind of surprised. This is the first time I've gotten in the back of this. I'm 5'9". Headroom pretty decent because the roof slopes up a bit, and you know, my hair just barely brushes the headliner, and my feet can fit under the seat, and also I have decent legroom. The driver's seat is in the position that I would be sitting in. I'm actually surprised, and it's a nice rake. The bottom of the seat is pretty comfortable. It's a perforated black leather. The rear seats in this are not heated or cooled, but the rear windows are one touch up and down. This one, because it's an S trim, has a lot of this brushed aluminum trim all throughout the car. There's an ashtray for the homies if you're rolling 4 deep in here, because there is a middle seat belt, but the center hump for the drivetrain is so big. But there's also this really big center console, but it's just an armrest with small cup holders. There is a pass-through, but like I said, the rear seats don't fold. And now let us get behind the wheel of this sports sedan. Now, this is actually the first time I've actually experienced a G, any G. But let's start it up. Push button start for 08. Nice, smooth, quiet. Thank God this one doesn't have the trumpet sound. I've been in the older Q45s. I've even ridden in the larger M, so the big brother of this. And if I was in the market for one car or, you know, a daily driver, I think this would be the perfect size for me because the seats are comfortable, they're leather, they're full power for the driver's seat with lumbar and also manual thigh extension. You can also change the bolstering for your thighs and also your back, which is cool. Now, I just remembered, now because of these buttons, if you go inside a new Nissan Z, a 2023 Nissan Z, they use the same switches for the seats. But the steering wheel of this is pretty nice. It's a 3-spoke leather-wrapped wheel, nicely sized and nicely bolstered, you know, nice 9-in-3 grip. There are also some buttons on the wheel. The left side controls the audio controls and the Bluetooth controls, and the right side is just for cruise control. The headlights are automatic, but not the wipers. Something interesting about these Infinitis and Nissans of this era is that so it's a power steering column, but it's the whole thing that moves, which is cool. So you never lose sight of the gauges. Now the gauges are pretty simple. Of course, there's no digital readouts because this is 2008, but there is a little bit of a center display which you can scroll through various information, mostly about the mileage and trip computer. One nice thing, because this has a power adjustable steering column, is that the memory works for the steering wheel, the seats, and the mirrors. Now looking at the center display, early and mid 2000s Infinitis were interesting in this regard of doing this flat button style. I remember it in the 03 Q45 when I was a real little kid. It's intuitive enough for this age. It's touchscreen, which thank God it's touchscreen. These, those early mouse pads are awful, but there's not that much in it. It has built-in navigation, Bluetooth for the phone. Let's see, I don't know if it does Bluetooth audio. It's actually reasonably responsive. Dare I say, more responsive than some new cars out there. This one also has the optional Bose audio system, which sounds very good. Infiniti audio systems of the 2000s were really banging. Bang them dudes. Bang them dudes. You also have dual zone climate control for the driver and the passenger. The controls are very easy to use. Thankfully, Infiniti did not put the settings for the climate in the infotainment screen because that would be really annoying. Down below that, there's a cigarette lighter and an ashtray. There's also underneath this 2 small cup holders as well. There are 2 bigger cup holders in each door pocket for the driver and passenger side. The center console is also pretty low, but the armrest is pretty soft, and the console itself is reasonably small. This car was not that storage minded. Like the glove box is pretty shallow, but it's damped. There's an auto-dimming rearview mirror with garage HomeLink, and of course, this car has a sunroof. So one thing about these that I had to get used to while within the first few minutes of driving this was the clutch. It picks up towards the middle, which is, I'm used to my Tacoma. If you guys are regular watchers, the clutch on Phantom grabs at the bottom and other cars grab at the top. But this is the middle. We're gonna go for it. We're second roll. Wow! 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 Okay, this has some giddy up. Okay, yep, it's of course not, there's always gonna be one person that's gonna be like, oh, it's slow. For me, and compared to what even compared to what I've driven, this is very respectable power. Yeah, I've gotten used to the clutch. Wow! When you power shift it, it's actually pretty quick. As I was driving to, film, I was smiling. And I was like, oh no. But this isn't a bad car. It's just the people that drive them, and not even all the people, because I know some G people that are respectable people. And most of you that are watching that are G people are also probably respectable people. Third gear. Great high-end power. Yeah, this car has a lot of high-end power. Fantastic. Wow. It's fun. It's fun. Let's see how this puppy does around a corner. Wow, it encourages you. Now, I'm nowhere near the limit, but it encourages you. I'm assuming it's definitely because of that LSD in the back. It encourages you to power out of the corners. Like, downshifting is pretty easy. Like, the shifter is precise. It's just, it doesn't have the mechanical feel that I desire. Especially, I've been driving a car that is unnamed right now. God, I've been driving a car that will be revealed to the channel soon that has a really good shifter. So, now I'm like, oh, I've been spoiled. A launch. Wow, it chirps second. This car is fast as shit. That was 60. That was really good. Wow, there is a little bit of body roll, but the way how the car leans into the corner encourages you to ride it, you know? My goodness. Wow. The traction control light comes on every so often. It's funny. I want to do a launch across the bridge. This is fun. This is fun. Okay. Oh, actually, VDC off. Wow! That was 70 miles an hour. I'll turn VDC back on. This thing has some balls, man. This has balls. It's really good. The handling is sharp. The steering is hydraulic, but it has a little bit of weight. It has weight to it, in, you know, a good form of weight, but it's not as like, you know, snickety snick as you'd expect some other cars to be. But for the class of car, this is more fun to drive than a TL. I won't say a TL Type S. Wow, my goodness. We'll do a loop back. I'm actually kind of enjoying this car. That's funny. If you're driving this normally, I'm in 5th gear, doing about 55 right now. It's quiet, there is some road noise, but it really depends on what tires you have. Can't judge that too much. It rides really nice, actually. It's the perfect amount of stiffness for me, I would say. Passing power is good. You can't, I mean, like, especially on a back road, I'm never gonna be like, oh, let's drive it normally. Gosh. It handles well, and I love how it, you know, how rear wheel, I mean, it's rear wheel drive, I know that. Woohoo! You don't feel how fast you're going either. The only thing that most people will have to get comfortable with is the body roll with the stock suspension G. Even though this is the S, there definitely is still some body roll at higher limits. So whenever I review a car, I never go in before filming expecting to be like, oh, it's a piece of shit, or oh, it's the best car in the world. So this one I had no expectations. I've never driven a G, didn't know how powerful it would be, but to my surprise, this thing has some get up and go. The 308 horsepower and 268 horsepower VQ35 HR really is a good combination with that 6-speed manual, but again, I would put a short throw shifter on it. I don't know how big of a difference it would do. If you have one of these, let me know in the comments below. Maybe one day I'd like to review a G37. I don't want to turn into a VQ guy, but I like this car. I wouldn't buy one of these for myself just because I like the multiple car lifestyle. I like putting myself through that, but this is a really good car for the value if you're looking for a daily driver that gets reasonable gas mileage. It is expensive to put gas in this, but it's fun to drive. Anyways, before I start rambling, thank you for watching this video of this Infiniti G35 S. Stay tuned for many videos to come. Thanks to Karna for letting me film his G, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, peeps.